Elementary School and Flagler Palm Coast High School. What I'd like to do now is let you listen to one of the many audio calls.
Flagler County Sheriff's Office, Ashley, how can I help you?
I just shot my teacher in the head.
Where?
Their name is Chris.
I didn't hear you.
I just shot my teacher in the head.
Where are you at?
I'm in their classroom, and I'm trying to hide the body right now.
Which school are you talking about?
Flagler Palm Coast High School.
Flagler Palm Coast High School?
Yeah.
Okay, and is anybody hurt?
Yeah, I think my teacher is dead.
Okay, what's your name?
My name is Jordy.
What is it?
Jordy. Jordi. Jordy.
Okay, what's your phone number?
386-232-5930.
I'm sorry, what was it?
386-232-5930.
That wasn't enough numbers.
Wait. 386-232-5930.
Okay, and what room are you in?
I don't know, but
Okay, and do you have any other weapons?
yeah.
What'd you say?
I have a flare stick.
Anything else?
No. But I do have a gun.
Okay, what kind of gun do you have?
Assault rifle 15.
Assault rifle 15.
Yeah.
Okay, what color is it?
Black. It's all black. Yeah.
Okay, and where's it at?
It's in my hand right now.
I didn't hear what you said.
It's in my hand.
Okay.
And if you don't come quickly, they will all die.
I think we'll move on. I think you get the gist of the call. The other 20 calls that came in were similar to this with some variations. These calls were received by our communications center, the Volusia County Sheriff's Communications Center, and the Lincoln, Nebraska Emergency Communications Center. In each case, the caller stated there was a bomb or bombs had been placed, threatened to commit a mass shooting, or stated that they had shot a teacher, student, or multiple people. These calls resulted in a massive response each time by the Sheriff's Office, Bunnell Police Department for the ones that occurred in their city, Palm Coast Fire Department, and Flagler County Fire Rescue. Each case was determined to be a hoax, or what's commonly known as a swatting call. Every case instilled fear in our students, teachers, parents, with many keeping their children at home until the end of the school year. You may recall at the time, I told the media in our community that we would limit official comment because people that commit this type of crime want the perceived fame and chaos they cause as if they won a trophy. Unfortunately, social media posts by students, parents, and others, often based on rumors, continued, along with continuing media coverage, gave him the fame he was seeking and required us to update the community with more factual information. These criminal acts resulted in a 10-week investigation led by our Criminal Intelligence Unit, Detective Obar, and by our Homeland Security Section, our Digital Forensics Unit, our Real-Time Crime Center, our dispatchers that took the calls, and our deputies that responded. We also served 4 search warrants and issued 1 subpoena for digital data or to seize physical devices. We were assisted in this investigation by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, our 7th Judicial Circuit State Attorney's Office, and the Henrico County Police in Virginia. We also used the services of the National Center for Audio and Video Forensics to conduct a voice pattern analysis of our suspect and the recorded calls. Detective Obar cannot be here with us today as he is attending Homeland Security training in South Florida. You may also remember that I said the suspect knew how to attempt to disguise his location, identity, and in some cases, not all, his voice. But I also stated that we had technology too. Early in this investigation, Detective Obar uncovered identifying digital information and issued subpoenas to obtain further information from the internet provider. This led Detective Obar to identify a person of interest, an 11-year-old kid, Noah McGee, date of birth 12/18/2012, that was living in Henrico County, Virginia. Through investigative means, we determined the calls came from inside Noah's residence in Henrico County. Think of it, an 11-year-old creating all this chaos and mayhem in our community. And you're about to learn he's done a lot more. On June 17th, Detective Obar, Detective Moy, and Sergeant Rodriguez traveled to Virginia, and with the assistance from the Henrico County Police Division in Henrico, Virginia, served a search warrant on the suspect's residence. At the residence, detectives interviewed Noah's mother, brother, and Noah himself. What we learned was frankly shocking and alarming, especially considering his age. According to the mother, Noah had begun being constantly online during COVID. As time went on, his online activity and dark behavior became more concerning to the family, but they apparently did nothing. His brother told us Noah was, quote, weird. He also stated that Noah had a very dark side and a very dark sense of humor and looked at disturbing material online, such as videos containing animal cruelty. During Noah's interview, he stated that he used methods he had learned online to try and circumvent law enforcement and hide his identity. Well, frankly, he failed at that. He admitted to making all the threat calls in Flagler County, as well as some of the threats made in Volusia County School District and a threat to the Maryland State House of Representatives. Noah stated that he was interested in very violent material that he could find online, such as torturing of pets, video decapitation, and murder pornography. During the forensic autopsy of his electronics, our digital forensics unit discovered videos that depicted cutting off the heads of live cats, boiling them alive, and much more. He also admitted to other criminal acts that included online sexual cyber harassment, sextortion, and swatting on behalf of other people. People would pay him in cryptocurrency to make swatting calls for them or to not release nude or compromising pictures that he had manipulated kids online to send him. He also told us that every news report was like adding a trophy to his online persona. Our detectives seized all the technology from his home in Virginia and then served search warrants on Noah's electronic devices. Our digital forensics unit conducted forensic autopsies on each device, which yielded digital forensic evidence that collaborated the investigative techniques used to identify him and locate him and confirm the calls originated from him, including all the other just disturbing things that I mentioned. During the search of Noah's laptop, we discovered he had removed the hard drive before the computer was seized, which detectives believe he did to destroy evidence after another agency had contacted him about swatting calls he had made in their state. Detective Obar worked with State Attorney R.J. Larizza's office, and on July 18, 2024, Judge France signed an order to take juvenile into custody, which is the equivalent of an adult warrant, charging him with 14 felony counts of false report of a bomb, explosive, or weapons of mass destruction or firearm, 14 counts of unlawful use of a two-way communications device, 1 felony count of tampering with physical evidence, and 14 misdemeanor counts of disrupting a school function. As soon as we received the pickup order, I contacted the Henrico County, Virginia Sheriff, and ultimately the next day on July 19th, Henrico County Police arrested Noah McGee, and he is being held in a Virginia Juvenile Detention Center. I also spoke with the Secretary of the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice, Dr. Eric Hall, whose department is responsible for working with DJJ authorities in Virginia to use the Interstate Juvenile Compact to bring him back to Florida to face these charges. The Interstate Juvenile Compact is a compact between states and is similar to an adult extradition process, but for juveniles. This is a legal process, but once that is completed, Secretary Hall told me this morning that McGee will be held in the Juvenile Detention Center in Volusia County. And I want to thank Secretary Hall and the DJJ team for quickly jumping on this and working with Virginia so we could get him back to Florida and hold him accountable. This investigation is continuing. The threat calls to First Baptist Christian Academy and Sun Coast Community School are being investigated by the Bunnell Police Department, and additional charges may be pending in other jurisdictions also. During our investigation, we discovered this juvenile terrorist made threats across the state to include Volusia, Brevard, Pinellas, Pasco, Hillsborough counties, and also across the country to schools and government agencies in Alabama, Alaska, Kansas, Maryland, Nebraska, Tennessee, Virginia, and Washington, D.C. We have turned over the evidence we have on those cases to the investigating jurisdictions. I want to emphasize, this is an example of domestic terrorism, and the fact that this suspect responsible is only 11 years old is truly sad. It's also evident this was not a kid's prank, but were deliberate acts. It's also evident that without intervention by our agency, he was escalating and intrigued by more dangerous, violent, and escalating behavior. Without the courts and the juvenile justice system intervening with serious sanctions and psychological help, I believe that we will read about him committing more serious and probably violent crimes in the future. This kid needs to be held accountable, and he needs to get serious help. Otherwise, he's going to seriously hurt someone. We have done our part. It's now up to the juvenile justice system to hold him accountable, to turn him around before he spends his life in prison or seriously hurts or kills someone or a defenseless animal. The videos that we recovered break my heart that we saw. Don't let his age fool you. He's a smart, and dangerous kid. With school coming up in less than a month, I know the status of this investigation was on the mind of our community, and I hope this arrest brings some peace and calm to our community. I want the community, students, and teachers to also know that if you make a threat to a school or anywhere, to another business, hospital, wherever in Flagler County, we will never stop until we find the person responsible for terrorizing our students, parents, teachers, and community, no matter where you are or if you're trying to hide behind a keyboard. Since this case involves online terroristic and extortion behavior by an online predator, and that is what he is. Even if he's only 11 years old, he's an online terrorist predator. We invite our community to attend a seminar on how to keep your kids safe from the dangers of online predators. You can join us in the FBI's Jacksonville office on August 21st from 5:30 p.m. to 7 p.m. at Flagler Auditorium for the important safety seminar called Be Smart. The playground when I was growing up was the danger ground. No more. The unknown person on the dark web behind the keyboard is the new child predator, and sometimes, as in this case, is a child. Finally, I always tell parents that it's your job to be the sheriff in your home, and this is exactly why. It is extremely important to know what your kids are doing online, especially if they start displaying behaviors like Noah did. It's also why I support Florida's new law, spearheaded by Florida Speaker of the House Paul Renner, and signed into law by Governor DeSantis, that requires parental approval and has other requirements if you are under the age of 16. And I know that the Speaker of the House and the Governor took some heat, mostly from liberal media that didn't understand what's going on the dark web and on a keyboard. This kid is a prime example on why this law is needed. I would now like to ask Speaker Renner to make a few comments.
Ladies and gentlemen, this crime, if it were committed by a middle-aged man, would be chilling. The fact that it happened and was committed by an 11-year-old boy is really hard to comprehend and understand and believe, but it's true. And the depth of it, as the sheriff shared with us before we came down, is really quite disturbing. And this individual should never, ever have been online to begin with. The federal government passed legislation requiring you to be at least 13 years of age under circumstances that I'm sure this gentleman, this boy accessed these sites. But the federal legislation has no teeth in it. It does nothing. And the federal government has frankly failed our children. There's no more important area when it comes to public safety than protecting our children. And so here in Florida, we passed different legislation which does have teeth, which does have penalties for these companies that know full well that they have 11-year-olds and even 8, 9, and 10-year-olds accessing these social media sites, both with respect to pornography, as well as traditional social media, that through those algorithms, once they start down a path, and it may not be a violent path, but it could be a path of anorexia, it takes them further and further down to a place where nearly one-third of high school women, according to the CDC, contemplated suicide in the last year. That is the unregulated experiment of social media that we've been embarked on. A whole generation has been raised digitally, and it is destroying their lives. And this is yet another tragic story of why we have to act, and we have failed to do so. But in Florida, we have 2 pieces of legislation that passed, will become effective here soon. One with respect to pornography that requires age verification under the age of 18. Kids that are 8 years old should not be accessing child pornography. No one should be accessing child pornography, but they should not be accessing any. And this gets in their minds and destroys their minds before they ever reach the age of adulthood. With respect to social media, we see that even 2 hours a day is causing significant mental health harm, and we know that many kids on average are online 4 to 6 hours a day. And so I applaud the sheriff and his amazing team here at the Flagler Sheriff's Office for solving a crime that didn't just affect our county, but did significantly, but other places across the United States and across the state. And so kudos to them for staying on this, for giving parents in this community peace of mind, at least as to this individual. He will not be making any more calls. We will not have any more of these swatting calls that cause terror in the minds of young children and their parents to know that a child that belongs in my home, my daughter or son, is being evacuated because this kid pretended to be engaging in some kind of mass casualty event. I want to thank State Attorney R.J. Larissa for his involvement in making sure that we go through the more difficult process of extraditing a juvenile at this age. And I know he'll be looking at all the evidence to make a decision with respect to prosecution. But for better or worse, this young man is going to have to be held accountable. And it's sad that we allowed him to work and operate and live in this dark, dark web world that he never should have had access to. And I want to just send my regards and thanks to Superintendent Moore as well. She's had a lot to deal with, needless to say, with 20 different calls. Every time you turn around, one of your schools is being evacuated or potentially threatened and having to deal with parents and say, what are you doing? In addition to those bills, I'll tell you we're doing a lot in coordination with our local school districts. We also passed here this year and have done in years past continued improvements in school safety. We passed another robust school safety bill this year to really statutorily require the locking of doors, and the things that we saw were failures in Parkland, simple, cost-free things that we can do to protect our children. So just know that this is an issue that matters here in Florida. We are taking action. The Attorney General under those bills has the ability to bring stiff penalties for social media companies that allow these underage kids under 14 or 15 and 16 without parental consent. And if they continue to do it systematically, to bring an action for punitive damages. And at the end of the day, you're going to have to hit them in the pocketbook because they have refused to follow the simple federal legislation that is in place because it carries no penalties. They would prefer to have a lifetime of customers that they hook at a young age and can keep online for the rest of their lives than to do the right thing. And so I'm hopeful that our bill, at least here in Florida, will protect our children and protect the future. And again, thank you, Sheriff, for all your work, and deputies, thank you for everything you did to make this happen. Thank you, guys.
Next up will be State Attorney Larissa.
Good afternoon, folks. I just want to start by outlining a little bit about how the extradition process will work. The defendant's being held up in Virginia. There'll be a hearing, we believe, tomorrow. At that hearing, he could waive extradition. He doesn't have to, but he could. If he waives extradition, it'll speed the process along, getting the DJJ folks up in Virginia and the ones down here to coordinate having him transported to Volusia County, where he'll be held pending the outcome of these charges. If he contests the extradition, it could take a little longer. The indications we have right now is that he won't, but until that happens, we really won't know for sure. He will be entitled to a detention hearing when he gets to Volusia County. We'll be seeking secure detention on him while we review the charges. There are several charges to go through, potentially even more. We have been working with the sheriff and his staff. We assisted in getting the warrants together. So we will be reviewing all of the evidence to make determinations about the nature of charges and the quantity of charges. From a more just common sense or a more personal perspective here, sometimes you just have to get smacked in the face before you realize something. And I mean, it's been said this is sad, it's disturbing about the age of this kid, this defendant, this individual. But, it's enlightening. It's time that people understand just how dangerous the internet can be. Now, we all use it, and there are great benefits to it. But when you have young minds who everybody will agree are susceptible and vulnerable, and you add in whatever social conditions or whatever other conditions are there, when this happens, when I get something like this that comes across my desk, my job is to protect you and your families and the folks in our communities. Whatever happened to get that individual where they're at, that's something that you and our society has to try and figure out to try and prevent. Because when an individual gets to this point, to this magnitude, it's questionable how much help, how productive the help will be. I certainly hope and pray that there are ways to reach this kid, but I can guarantee you, in the 7th Circuit and in the great state of Florida, accountability is going to rule the day. And that's where we stand. Thank you.
Next up, Superintendent Moore.
Good afternoon. My comment is very short, and it's really to say thank you to our sheriff and to the entire force for all that you did and continue to do to ensure that our students are safe. And so on behalf of the faculty, staff, students, and community of Flagler County, thank you for not just brushing this under the rug, but taking it serious every single time that those calls came in and pursuing it even after that. So thank you so much. And I'll say we look forward to a great service this school year. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next up is School Board Chair Furry.
Yes, good afternoon. First off, I do want to thank Sheriff Staly and the investigative team for getting to the bottom of this and bringing this person to justice. We had several calls that disrupted our daily school schedule. I happened to be on campus when one of them happened, and I was able to see our principal and building leaders bring into action, put our safety protocols into place, and make sure that your children were put out of harm's way. And I also want to thank Speaker Renner, legislature, and the governor for bringing legislation forward that is going to help hopefully curb what kids are seeing online. I know that your kids are under pressure, under peer pressure, to have these social media apps and view things online. But if your children wanted poison, you wouldn't give them poison. And social media and things that they're viewing online are poisoning the minds of our young children. And we're seeing how it's influencing their behavior. So I'm calling on parents to please monitor what your children are doing online. When you see signs of this type of behavior, say something. Get them the mental health that they need, or bring it to the attention of authorities, because it can save their life and it can save other lives. And there are tools out there, parents, that you can put into place to block these things. And just, a message to anybody out there that's thinking about doing something like this. It's not worth the attention that you may be seeking, because we're not going to tolerate it at Flagler schools. And the sheriff is going to find you and he's going to put you in jail. And that's going to ruin the rest of your life. And in closing, I just want parents to know that the safety and security of your children has always been and always will be our highest priority at Flagler schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the media, when you exit, one of our public affairs officers has a media packet to give you that will give you a timeline, a news release with some of the details, not as detailed as we just went through, and some other information, so be sure to get that. Now we will open it up for any questions that you may have.
Sounds like the parents sort of knew what was going on, or at least the mom in this case. What should she have done?
Well, I think what she should have done is when she realized there was something going on with her child, she should have reached out for help, whether it was through school counselors in Virginia or local services. Just don't ignore it, and that's apparently what happened. Or write it off as, well, that's just Noah being Noah. No, I've been doing this a long time. I can tell you, there's all kinds of studies. You start out maybe doing voyeurism, then you escalate, and when you start being excited and thrilled about decapitation and animal cruelty, the next step usually is something being done to an adult. And so we've intervened now. Too bad, you know, local authorities either, our understanding is they did have contact with Noah in the past. Maybe not to this level, but he didn't get the intervention that should have occurred.
In May, you guys announced that you had arrested Jorion Smith in connection to some of the swatting calls in the Flagler schools. What's the relation between him and now Noah?
Yeah, there's none. If you recall back then, I said this was a copycat, and that's exactly what it was. They saw the media attention, did a copycat, and we said that from day one as a copycat. The MO was different, the voices was different, so we knew it was a copycat, not the main suspect that we wanted.
So Noah was the one that did it first? Well, since he's 11 years old, can you charge him as an adult? And if not, or what penalty would he face as a juvenile for this?
That is yet to be determined, what the penalties and what the charges will be. To a large extent, what he's charged with will indicate what the potential penalties or what his exposure would be.
Can you give us an idea of what the charges might be, just so we can?
Well, you've got the charges that have been talked about here today are primarily, a lot of them are second-degree felonies. Depending on the nature and the circumstances, it could be even potentially some other more severe charges. We don't know. We've got to evaluate that first before we make a decision. As far as whether or not he can be charged as an adult, yes, it's possible. But I won't say anything more than that at this point. We're going to take the time necessary to make a very fair and a very considered judgment on how we proceed with this kid. But we can't ignore the chaos that was created and the anxiety that it created for the students and the parents and the community is damaging. That stress takes a toll as well. So we're going to consider everything and try to get to the best decision we can.
Would you need like an indictment or some other special procedure?
Indictment is a way. It's a possibility. It's a way to do it. Yes.
On the note of like the schools, and either one of you guys I guess could answer this, but I know it was really chaotic and everything like that. You kind of brought up policies. Was there anything just out of this chaos that maybe you guys learned from, or maybe you're kind of switching up policies just going into the new school year?
What I'm confident about is that the collaboration with the sheriff's office, each time those calls came in, we followed our safety protocol, and I'm confident in the safety protocols that we have, and we followed them each time. And we got feedback from some members in the community that says, well, why not? Why do we continue to do that? But that's our protocol, is that anytime those calls came in, we were going to follow our safety protocols, and that's what we did, and I'm confident in that. And I'm thankful for our faculty, staff, and students for taking it seriously each time. I mean, 20 times is a lot of times to lock down a school.
Any idea what led it to take Flagler?
Yeah, I'll come to that in a minute. So just to add a little bit to your question, yesterday, ironically, all first responders in this county along with the school district held a training drill at Flagler County High School of an active assailant. I'm proud to say that within 36 seconds, we had neutralized the assailant. And so the policies work, the training works. We pray that we never have to respond to a real event. But what the community should take away is that your school district and your law enforcement and your fire departments are prepared and ready if we have to. There will not be a Uvalde in Flagler County. There won't be a Parkside in Flagler County. The SRD sergeant's here, an SRD is there. He actually happens to also be the explosive canine handler stationed at FPC. They know the expectations, and we saw that occur yesterday when we took out the assailant. Sadly, in that exercise, a deputy, in theory, died also during that, but that is how you learn and make sure that you are ready and prepared.
Sure.
Just a minute, Frank, what was your question?
Oh, just, did he say what led him to take Flagler?
So this is still part of the investigation and we are continuing. But what he claims is that he has a friend on a chat room named Adam that goes to Buddy Taylor Middle School, and that's how it started. Whether or not there was a dare or whatever they said in the chat room, we're still looking at that. We are continuing the investigation. We believe we have evidence that will lead us to who Adam is. But it doesn't look like at this point there'll be any criminal charges on this Adam. But that's how he picked this school. Then when he started getting the media attention, the trophies as he calls it, he then Googled and found other schools that are in Flagler County, and that's how we ended up with Old Kings and the two private schools. But he mostly focused on Buddy Taylor.
How many of the calls are attributed directly to Mickey, and are those other two schools that are still under investigation? Do you think they are also tied to Mickey's calls?
So he has admitted to all the calls at all the schools in Flagler County, with the exception of the one that was a copycat that we made an arrest on very quickly. So he is responsible for all of them in Flagler County except for the copycat, and admitted to calls in Volusia County and to the Maryland State House. But you can see in the screen back here, we have evidence that he made phone calls to all of those states, the schools and government facilities.
Do you know how many phone calls were made in total across all the states?
I didn't add them up. I don't know. I can tell you that he did 20 in Flagler County alone. Actually 21.
Do we know if he had access to weapons in the home?
We did not recover any weapons. His weapon was a keyboard.
Are the estimate on the cost of all this to the agency, would that be billed to the family?
Well, I mean, we always try to recover the cost of our taxpayers. I can tell you that, even if we got a judgment, it would be unlikely that the mother could pay for this. It is a single mom living in subsidized housing. But I can tell you it's tens of thousands of dollars.
Have you reached out to these other jurisdictions where you know he made calls, and have you been in contact with them? Are you aware of that anybody else is like looking at this kid for charges?
Well, we know that Bunnell Police Department are looking at him for the two cases in Flagler County and their city. We know that Maryland State Police are looking at him, and we have relayed the information to the jurisdictions where we know he called, but it's up to them to take it from that point forward. We don't have any jurisdiction.
And you also mentioned, I think you had the assistance of the FBI?
Correct.
These are interstate calls. Could he possibly be facing federal charges?
Well, in the technical world, yes. I would venture to say because he's 11 years old, there's not a U.S. attorney that would probably take that case, but that's up for them to decide. But I'm not aware of any current investigation by federal authorities on this kid.
Is there any context for how he became so dark? Is it thought to just be what he saw on the internet, or is it known if he has any behavioral or developmental disorders or any family trauma that may have contributed to this?
No, we don't have any information as far as any of the items that you just described. I can't tell you that it's not there. What I can tell you is he's a very smart kid. He's an articulate kid. And some of the things that we have recovered and have seen, he's a very violent kid or has violent tendencies.
Does he seem sorry?
No, he was actually more proud of himself from what my detectives have told me. He may be sorry now because we're holding him accountable, but not during the interviews.
Sheriff, those are some disturbing calls to listen to. How's your staff been handling it?
Well, my staff is very resilient. Of course, 20 calls that you have to take as real. Does weigh on our team. But we do resiliency training in our agency and make resiliency programs available that they don't have to come to us to ask, they can access it themselves. So to my knowledge, I think they did a phenomenal job. If you listen to how the 911 operators handled it, you heard a piece of one, you know, you can pretty well tell, like we did, that it probably and very likely a false call based on, you know, he didn't know what room he was, and you could tell by the call you listened to, he's making it up as he goes. But just because that's the way it sounds, we have to still respond as if it's the real thing. And so our team did a phenomenal job. Unfortunately, they got a lot of training in 9 days that we would have preferred to not have, and so with it concurred. All right.
Can you give me the correct spelling of Noah's name?
Noahmagede. And I think that'll be in your press packet too. All right, well, thank you so much for coming, and we appreciate your partnership.